Hello and welcome back to the One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Yeah, not bad. And for the second time, we're joined by Joel. Joel, how are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
So obviously, we'll get straight into it. Joel, we know you're an Arsenal fan. Must be a good week for you so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a poor season. Let's be honest. Finishing eighth isn't what any of us wanted, and so winning the FA Cup just makes that a little bit more. What's the word? It makes it a little bit better, I say, because what we needed is a trophy. Arteta get one his first season, whatever, 8 months in, or whatever. It's just the perfect start for him, and then for the fans just to get one before Frank and Ole to make it a little bit better for us as well.
Well, just going on that then, do you think this FA Cup win makes it a better season for Arteta than for Lampard and Ole, or do you think the league positions speak for themselves?
Well, no, it's definitely better for Frank and Ole because they're the ones competing with the best in Europe next season. Well, we're probably going to play against some random teams from all over the continent again. So it's still better for Frank and Ole, I'd say, but just for Arteta to know what it's like to win a trophy as a proper manager, and just for our players as well, because this is Aubameyang's first trophy, Lacazette's as well. I think Pepe's got one in the first season as well now. So I think it's just important for us to win something, even if it's the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think to be fair to Arteta, with the state of the club, the state that the club was in when he took it over, to where they are now, they were on a decent run of form at the end of the season, and now they've won a trophy. I think, as much as it pains me to say it, you've got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, even after when we got knocked out of Europa League, things were not looking good at that point because Olympiacos are a good team and they might knock out Wolves, but realistically, we should be beating them. So, yeah, for where the club was to where we are now and looking good for next season, if we make a few signings, he's got to give him credit for what he's done.
So, Emery, did you watch the game yourself?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was rooting for Arsenal because I just wanted to see Frank Lampard cry a little bit more after the game. He's been a miserable bastard for the last kind of few weeks about everything that doesn't go his way. He complains about. So, and it's just nice to see him on the wrong end of things again. He's a misery guts. So, but no, I thought Arsenal played well. Chelsea were a bit underwhelming. I think you could say that. I mean, the only threat they had in the whole game was Pulisic, probably. And then when he got injured, it was curtains, pretty much. So, and it's Aubameyang again, on form as he always is. That contract needs to be signed ASAP. I assume from kind of Joel's point of view as well. You're thinking that if you don't tie him down, then it could be a bit of a difficult season next year, considering the amount that he contributes game in, game out to your side. So, no, I was impressed with Arsenal. Improved defensively massively. I don't know where that's come from. I guess it's just a bit more organisation. But with that back line, you look at it and you still think it needs improvement. But if you can keep a clean sheet with that back line, you can do miracles in the Premier League next season for sure. So, yeah, I don't know what Joel's take on the game was in total. I think Arsenal were a bit dominated at times, but did the same against City and pulled through well. So, yeah, Joel, what did you make of the game as a whole?
Yeah, we started off so slow. Not slow, but players like Xhaka, Ceballos, they would, with our formation, those two really dictate how we play. So when they were holding on to the ball for too long, Mason Mount getting the early chance as well, it wasn't looking good. And then obviously Pulisic scored that goal as well. Yeah, from what we've seen this season, we kind of feared the worst again, especially after Baku as well. But then we somehow just got back into it straight away. Holding started playing better. Xhaka and Spurs started playing quicker. And then it wasn't the greatest football in terms of we're just long balling it to Aubameyang and it worked every single time. But when it works, it works. They just couldn't handle the pace of him, and just every single minute we got stronger. And then the Aspie injury, I don't think affected him too much, but the Pulisic one, I think I just sort of killed him off a bit, even more than that red card eventually did as well, because he was like, I think Rob Holding and Tierney were dealing with wherever Mount went. Giroud was getting handled by David Luiz. So Pulisic was like the only threat. So once he went off, it was unfortunate, but I think that was just the nail in the coffin. And then Aubameyang does what he does in the games, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, you mentioned, obviously, we take nothing away from the Arsenal performance. They've been quality against Chelsea, City and Liverpool now. But that red card and the refereeing performance in general was definitely a big talking point for the game. Yeah, anyone have any opinions on what happened there?
I always have opinions on referees. Yeah, shoddy. I think that's the word you could use to describe it. And with refs this season, they get bailed out so often by VAR. The VAR is brought in to get the right decisions, and yet somehow that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So refs have been getting a lot of protection this year with VAR and how that's kind of progressed, and it's they're not overturning decisions. They're saying, if it's not clear and obvious error, which that in its own right is saying protect the referees. But yeah, it was a poor performance again from the referees. But I don't think you can take that away from Arsenal. It wasn't their fault that the ref had a bit of a stinker. They took advantage of opportunities, got the best out of their front line. Lacazette, again, I'm really not sure about him. He can turn up and score some amazing goals, but he's so inconsistent. The only threat in that front line that I saw really was Aubameyang. And as soon as you get the ball over the top, at one-on-one with a defender, he's going to score. That's how it is. So, but yeah, I don't know what Joel thinks on the kind of front line. Pepe's getting better, progressing. Lacazette seems to take kind of one step forward, two steps back. He scored in the North London derby, an absolute worldie. And then the last few games, he's been a bit of kind of anonymous at times. So, yeah, what's your take on him, Joel?
Well, first of all, on the referee thing, it wasn't a red card. It wasn't a second yellow. It wasn't a foul at all. But I don't think there were too many decisions that he got wrong, really. Fair enough, the red card may have killed them, but they're already 2-1 down. They weren't looking that good, 0 shots on target and shots in general, I think, maybe in that second half. So I think Chelsea fans are just hyping up because they don't want to admit that we were just a better team. And fair enough, I think every team does that in the big games. They don't want to admit that the other team was just better than them. So on the front three, yeah, Aubameyang, I think 29 goals this season in all comps. So you can't. So signing him a new contract is the most important thing. Lacazette, I think Arteta wants to keep him. And the reason Aubameyang's on the left is Arteta came out and said, yeah, he wants a hold-up striker, not really the Aubameyang pace up top, just someone who can hold the link-up play. And Lacazette is perfect for that because he saw against City in the semis and against Chelsea in the final now. So if that's his job, fair enough. Then if he's just there to get the ball off the pitch to Aubameyang finish, then I'm all for that. And Pepe, I think, showed exactly why Arsenal fans are starting to rate him even more now in that cup final. That disallowed goal, I screamed before I realised it was offside. But it's just he's starting to get more confidence now, taking on more players. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those three next season, to be honest.
Well, it's interesting to see how important Aubameyang is, but it's debatable that this season the two goalkeepers that you've had, especially given the circumstances, have been just as important for you. How would you rate their seasons as a whole, as a person who's watched them every week?
Yeah, I mean, Leno, well, Arsenal obviously would name our players this season. The three nominees are Aubameyang, Leno, and Saka. Saka just been announced as our third best, so Leno's 1 or 2. So I think that just shows how important he's been for us. Without him and Aubameyang, we'd maybe not relegated, but we'd be very close, and which is not surprising, but it's hard to admit because Leno, he's up there with the most saves in the league. And when you talk about most saves, you normally think about teams that are near the relegation zone because they just face more shots. So what Leno's done for the majority of the season is unnoticed. But I would say he has to earn his place back now when he comes back from injury, purely because of the job Martinez has done. Because I don't think he's made like a huge mistake at all. But look, I think maybe the storyline of Martinez as well helps his case a little bit. Just waiting 10 years to get this chance. And to be fair to him, he's taken with both hands. Almost messed it up in the final, cutting the ball outside the box, but it looks like he just about got it right. But yeah, I think for once we don't have any keeper issues, so we can just focus on the outfield now.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting when Leno does get back from injury, because you're going to have a big dilemma on your hands because both keepers are outperforming each other. So I think realistically Arteta should make Leno earn his place back. I don't think as soon as he's fit he should win his place back, because Martinez has been incredible. To say what a bit part player he's always been, and now suddenly he's performing like one of the best keepers in the league. But yeah, like you say about Leno, he's up before his injury. He was up there with top saves. I've got to say, even from a United perspective, he's having a similar effect to the effect De Gea had when we finished second. Because De Gea was, I think he was in the top 5 at least saves that season, and he was behind a woeful defence. He was the reason we weren't mid-table. I'd say. I think. Yeah, definitely. Without Leno, you'd have one of the worst defensive records in the league. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
When we speak about Chelsea, complete contrasting sides of the kind of spectrum where they drop their number one keeper for the final. Now, a lot of people will say Caballero is a cup keeper, this, that, blah, blah, blah. They dropped him for the last game of the season as well. So if that doesn't say that his career is done at Chelsea, I don't know what does. He's clearly, I think he's got the worst save percentage from long shots this season. Maybe even the overall as a percentage of kind of shot saves. So yeah, that kind of discussion will go on and on. But Chelsea by the sounds of it, want to recoup 50 million for him. I think that's utterly ridiculous. I don't know who's going to pay that money for a keeper that's been woeful this season. Really, he's cost them so many points. It was like I'd say it was the equivalent of Liverpool when they had Karius, although not quite to that level because Karius did kind of cost them the Champions League. But yeah, I'd say it's kind of that's a big problem that they're going to have. If they don't offload Kepa, then they can't afford another keeper. They can't afford to buy one because they've spent so much money already. So yeah, that Chelsea one will be ongoing. Caballero, I think, will keep the number one spot in the pecking order until there's a new keeper brought in, because Lampard he's lost all faith in. I think he is the world's most expensive goalkeeper, and they've lost all faith in him over a period of like 6 months almost. So yeah, they're going to have to offload. That's one thing. That's one point where Chelsea might struggle next year if they can't offload him. And because bear in mind, he's probably on about 200k a week at Chelsea as well. If they can't offload him, then they could be in a bit of trouble next year.
Yeah, I think just to build on what you said as well, just completely by chance, I got some stats the other week about Kepa's season, and he ranks 20th for save percentage, and out of obviously all 20 goalkeepers that have been decided as first choice, and he's 20th for expected goals prevented as well. So he's 9 under his expected. Well, technically that's 9 over his expected goals conceded this season. So however many goals Chelsea have conceded this season, based on quality of chances, they should have conceded 9 less, and that's what you win games But you lose every game by 1 goal. That could cost you 27 points. That's just a stat that's that mental for a top 4 team. There's no way he should be allowed back in that starting 11. Surely.
That's the reason why Chelsea are kind of in the position they're in come the end of the season. I think because they dropped so many points in the kind of just after lockdown, just after the season resumed, they dropped so many points, as did Leicester, and that kind of shows how poor the kind of battle for top 4 was. You know, United have gone 14 games unbeaten, although drawing against Southampton and drawing against West Ham at home, and we've still managed to get top 4, third in fact. So still managed to get above Chelsea. So City and Liverpool were going to run away with it, regardless of whoever won the title. It was always going to be those two in the top 2 teams in the league. But the battle for top 4 has been, United shouldn't have even been within a shout with like 10 games to go. But it was just a huge catalogue of errors from Chelsea and from Leicester. Leicester were poor as well, and down to goalkeeping errors as well. Can't remember which one it was, but Schmeichel gifted the ball to someone that scored and kind of pegged them back in a game. So yeah, and De Gea making errors as well, and so I'm actually shocked that Arsenal didn't manage to. I mean, they're picking up form, that they didn't manage to get within kind of the race for top 4, because every other team was just woeful, making mistakes left, right, and centre. So, Joel, are you disappointed that you weren't able to get kind of further?
Yeah, I mean, because before the restart, like lockdown, if we call it that. Although we got knocked out the Europa League, we were still on pretty good form. We were starting to get a few more goals. Like at the start, we were still winning games 1 or 2-0, maybe 2-1. Then we got that really good win against Newcastle, and it seemed like our confidence is really high. And City was meant to be our game before it got postponed. So the first game back in City, everyone was like, okay, if we win this, we could have a small chance at top 4. And then Darren Luiz did his masterclass. And then after that Brighton game as well, which was like, all right, yeah, there's surely no chance now. And then we won a couple of games again. All right, let's beat Liverpool and Tottenham. Let's see what happens. We lost to Tottenham as well. So it's disappointing considering how many points United, Chelsea, and Leicester all dropped. But at the same time, I think if we did get top 4 or even close to it, Champions League would not have been good for us. We would have got smoked by a lot of big teams, I think. So I think Europa is better for us this season rather than Champions League. But yeah, it's always disappointing not to finish near you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, finishing outside that bracket must be a bit kind of frustrating more than anything. Obviously, you've got Europa League next season, so still in Europe, which will give its financial benefits as well. But the one thing that's going to be interesting this year is with the transfer market and kind of who buys what, considering the impact of the COVID kind of financial situation. So I don't know whether Arsenal will go and spend loads of money. Kroenke hasn't been best at doing that when you're at your kind of peak financially. So what he's going to do when the club's struggling a little bit, I don't know. But yeah, I can't see many big signings from that kind of side of the pond.
See, I think it's interesting to look at the minute, because obviously you've got wins against Liverpool, City, and Chelsea in quick succession, but it seems like you're going through the same phase as Ole did earlier in the season, where you're beating big teams, really coming up with a lot of surprises there, but struggling against the smaller teams. So I think we've obviously introduced Bruno now, and that's been a bit of a key to unlock the teams that obviously low block. I think you've got that player in Ozil there, but he obviously doesn't trust him, so I think he'll be out on his way. But surely that's got to be a big sign of recruitment. Obviously, Ceballos can play that role, but I think he's better deeper alongside Xhaka. But obviously, besides your defence, it's central defenders that need sorting out. I think you need a creative player in that number 10 to really complement what could become one of the best front threes in the league if Lacazette ups his game a bit. Who would you have in that holding role, if you agree with me there?
I'm dying to sign Coutinho, man. I like Guendouzi, but I mean, I think reports coming out Emery might want him at Valencia, but I will happily get rid of Guendouzi to get Coutinho in. He's exactly what we need because he's creative, but he can also score goals. So no one really takes long shots for us apart from Xhaka anyway, and that rarely it's a target. So if we get him in that position, get Ceballos feeding to him as well, if we can get him on another loan or permanent deal, I think Coutinho is just perfect for us, even more than Partey. So I mean, there've been like loads of different rumours, like Coutinho loan deal, swap for Guendouzi, whatever. I don't know if we can afford him now as well. Some news coming out today, but yeah, I think Coutinho is a big signing for us. I would prefer to sign a defender first, but if we can get the community deal done, I think it's a must.
Yeah, so you mentioned that. We'll move on to the next topic then. Obviously, the news has broken the last couple of hours that Arsenal have made 55 staff behind the scenes redundant, despite not asking the players to take any sort of a wage cut. What's your initial reaction on that then, Joel?
I don't understand it, man. Billionaire owners, and we're making staff redundant, but players aren't losing anything. In fact, players technically just got a raise, if you want to call it that, because they're going to take a huge pay cut from Islam Europe because you won the FA Cup. They got that cut a bit lowered, so they actually getting more than they would have if we didn't win it. It doesn't make sense to me how 55 of them have been made redundant. If we were like a Championship League One club, fair enough, we probably would have to do that. But we're not, man. We're competing in Europe every single season. We're being one day FA Cup, just get a little financial boost. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's an L, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I personally, from an outside point of view, I find it bizarre because obviously it's not Ozil's fault he's being paid this much, but you obviously have got Ozil on your books for apparently £350,000 a week. You've just reportedly offered Aubameyang a new contract with a lot more money, as important as he is. I don't understand where the owner's priorities lie. Obviously, these Arsenal players, they're all millionaires, surely, at this point. I think they could sacrifice a bit of their wages for a little bit to keep
that
these.
Probably will happen, sorry, but probably will like say, all right, let's just take a little cut, the players will decide, but that should have been done in the first place. Yeah, it's not Ozil's fault, it's not Aubameyang's fault being offered this much, but as a club, you got to prioritize actual, if you want to call it, life and people's jobs over just the players and the football club. You got to know what your priorities are, and that's just not right at our club. And for a club that we value ourselves a lot on being professional and stuff like that, this is the complete opposite. So yeah, it's not ideal at all.
Yeah, it's like, go on, sorry.
No, carry on.
Well, it's like you said, a lot of these staff that have been made redundant are working class people. They need the money a lot more. I imagine that the players will come together and they'll take sort of a similar U-turn to when Liverpool got a load of stick for furloughing their staff. Which, if that happens, then that's great. It'll be obviously it's not a good scenario to be in anyway, but it's good if they do that U-turn. But I just think for a manager who is so reluctant to spend on the squad, but not a manager, sorry, an owner. By the looks of it, he's never at games, is he? He doesn't really look like he wants anything to do with the team. To then splash out money wastefully on definitely Ozil. I think Aubameyang's earned his wage, and then take it away from those who need it most. I just think there's going to be blood on the owner's hands if this doesn't get reversed in any way.
There's been blood on his hands for the last 10 years, but I don't think he actually cares one bit. As evidence to why he's kind of farmed all the finances out to his son. Said, you just deal with it, can't be bothered. He has a lot of interest in his other kind of ventures. He obviously owns the LA Rams as well. And it's quite clear that his financial kind of, that they kind of had the financial power with him backing them to perform at the highest level. But I don't think he classes Arsenal as his top priority, or maybe in his top two. They're kind of just a cash cow. similar to United with the Glazers. American owners they have a very consistent kind of theme. They like to take money out of the club and use it for themselves, and then obviously owning the NFL team, which you've got to put a lot of money into to keep that running every year. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. And then mistakes. You're right, mistakes like Ozil on 350k a week. We're supposed to be letting Sanchez go now for free and offload his wages to Inter. United fans are more than happy with that. They don't really care about the finances. We'll be saving ourselves 60 million over the next 2 years, which he was supposed to be with the club. So, yeah, I mean, Ozil going is a priority. It's just whether any club can afford his wages, and his agent's already come out and said that he's happy to see out the last year of his contract because he'll be earning millions at the expense of the owners. But that kind of, if you sell him, that frees up 350k, which can be 3 top-class players. So, yeah, it's a bit of an issue for Arsenal, and I do have a lot of sympathy with the whole, with the staff that have been laid off by the club. As James said, it's similar to the Liverpool situation, although Liverpool furloughed their staff. The absolute irony of them being a very Labour-based kind of constituency who despise the government, and they're willing to take government money to furlough their own staff. So that's a different story, I guess. But yeah, I mean, surely the players can take a 5% wage cut. If they take 5% each, then that will build up enough money to keep the other staff in the job. So it's a bit of a shame.
Well, just to take a little bit of a side note from that, as you mentioned, Liverpool, it's also very, very interesting as a United fan to see that it's widely reported they spent £1 million on a ceremony just to lift a trophy. But the women's team that has been part and parcel of the Women's Premier League has just been relegated by quite some way because they've just not had any funding at all. I just think they're a club that don't. I think they're not getting the amount of stick they really deserve because they just. I think they've got their priorities in the wrong place. This club, they've obviously with the furlough thing, and now the women's team, and then spending £1 million to lift a trophy. Just think that's a bit mental.
That's very scouse. That's such a Liverpool thing to do.
But yeah, going back to the Arsenal owners, I think the sad thing is about them is that they know, as well as anyone else does, that Arsenal have got such a big and passionate fan base that money's always going to come in. Money's always going to come into the club through the fan base, just no matter what happens on the pitch. Because we all know Arsenal fans, they've gone through enough as it is. They're not going to leave the club now. So I think they don't really care. They know they're going to get a constant wage in. So I think that's why they've allowed this situation to get as bad as it has.
Joel, what do you think?
I don't know, man. I mean, you talk about the women's team earlier. I'm not sure about the prices we bought them for, but our women's team have made a few signings already for the new season. We haven't really let anyone go from our women's team, but we've made a few signings. So I know the prices will be a lot lower than it would be for a normal men's team. But yeah, I think it'd just be interesting to see where this money's going from these big clubs. I think Arsenal will get enough stick to overturn the decision, if you want to call it like that, and just deduct wages from players. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to recover from this, really. Just like Kroenke, like you say, he doesn't care. I think the only time he's come to a game at the last 3 or 4 years was when we went on pre-season tour to America. So he was just there anyway. But yeah,
literally, it makes me laugh how much of an arsehole he is. This guy actually, he doesn't. care. There's millions and millions of Arsenal fans around the world, and he just doesn't care. And it's infuriating for other fans as well. I know we like to see AFTV and stuff and all them crying every week about how they make their money on how much they dislike parts of the club and ranting and raving about it and stuff. But it is quite horrible to see another club in a sticky situation financially, although not as bad as other lower league clubs and stuff, but still, for the size that Arsenal are, and for the owner to be kind of, again, farming all the business out to his son, who, because he can't be bothered to do it himself, that's not good. It doesn't look good for Arsenal fans and for Arsenal as a whole, as a club. So need to find a way of spending some money this summer at Arsenal, because you need to improve on the squad that you've got, for sure, if you're going to be challenging for top 4 next year, because everyone else will buy players, definitely.
Well, as a neutral, all you got to hope is that this gets enough media attention to force them into action, I suppose. But speaking of a lot of media attention, we'll move on to something that has been getting a lot of attention recently, and that's the Jadon Sancho deal. Obviously, Don Fabrizio has been helping us out daily at the minute, giving us updates, and it's just interesting to see how Woodward is now. Well, Woodward and the club, I think it's more of a tactic than anything. I don't think there's anything malicious in there, but they're clearly using the British media as a tactic in this deal.
Well, it's the dynamic duo of Fabrizio and Christian Falk that are kind of downplaying all these rubbish rumours that the English media are coming out with, as they always seem to. They get it's bait. So the United one member of United staff, whatever, will throw them a worm and they'll bite. Simple as that. So it's not very good for if this, in terms of the Sancho deal, if United just walk away, it will look fantastic for the English media. But this happened with the Fernandes deal, with the Maguire deal, with the Wan-Bissaka deal as well. It's all a tactic to unsettle Dortmund, although they're in kind of no mind that they have to sell him because they don't. But United are saying that they could easily walk away from the deal, but from what I'm reading from Christian Falk, who's Fabrizio gets his information off him as well at times, the kind of insider in German football. He's saying that there's United have employed someone to negotiate the deal, so they're not doing it directly. So therefore, they can say that they're not involved with negotiations or involved in the transfer at all, which they did before. They did that in the Fernandes deal. They got Mendes, Jorge Mendes, to kind of sort the deal out. So this has all happened before, and as you said, Fabrizio is the one that we all trust a little bit more than we trust the English media, because again, they've been baited into it before, and I'm sure this probably isn't the last time they'll be baited into it as well.
Well, Joel, as a sort of outsider, then obviously me and Henry and I think every other United fan are caught up with the hype of Jadon Sancho. As an outsider, is he as intimidating as we think he will be? Will his arrival spark fear, or do you think we're just getting ahead of ourselves a bit?
If you guys sign Sanchez, like right now, when we face United, I'm not that worried, because it's Arsenal versus United, not what it used to be. It's just two banner clubs now, seeing who can play a bit better than the other. But if you sign Sancho, then I would genuinely be worried, because when I was most ready for United, it was Ronaldo and Nani just doing skill moves out on the wing and just getting past us easily. That's basically what Sancho's going to do to us if he's signing. And he's already got that end product. Like when Pulisic joined Chelsea, everyone else, you only have the end product in Bundesliga. He's going to get in the Prem, and he's showed that he can. Sancho's already got that. He already got caps for England as well. I think 120 mil. I think United should just pay it. I don't know if he can afford it, but if he can, I just think just go for it, man. This guy's a baller. still so young. And it's not like Henry said, Dortmund don't need to sell him. If they keep him, Haaland, and like Jude Bellingham, I don't know much about him. I don't watch Championship, but if they keep Sancho as well, they'll be more than happy to use him, help their Champions League campaign, help their Bundesliga campaign. So I think United should just pay the 120 mil and just get the deal done, because he will be a real force next season if you can get him.
Yeah, I think. Well, go on. What were you going to say, Emma?
Oh, I was just gonna mention about the Bellingham thing, about how I wonder whether when he leaves, which he inevitably will leave Dortmund if he's any good, whether they'll retire his shirt number as well.
I cannot believe Jake's still going on.
Small club mentality. He's been there for like a season and a half, and they're going to retire his shirt. That's like us retiring Lingard's shirt when he leaves.
Not going to happen. But yeah, I think I was talking about this the other day as well. The only thing that worries me about Sancho is he's inevitably going to go out on the right. But the reason he's worked so well this season is because he's had the overlap of Hakimi and Guerrero on either wing. So it allows him to either use the overlap or cut inside, one of those two, because 2 against one defender, it makes it very easy. Whereas on United's right, he's coming up against probably the most incompetent attacking fullback the Premier League has ever seen. He'll be building a strong partnership with Bambi on ice, and that sort of worries me a bit. So I think he might have to slightly change his game. There's no doubt he's going to be
oh God,
an incredible player. But that's what I think. The first season you've got to go easy on him, because he's not going to have that strong attacking support of Guerrero and Hakimi. He's going to have Daddy Longlegs behind him.
Honestly, we've spoken about this before. I think we spoke about it on the last podcast. About Wan-Bissaka's inability, I'd say, to cross the ball, inability to play a 5-yard pass. He's probably the best tackler in the Premier League in terms of going back towards his own goal. He's just incredible. Wins the ball 95% of the time. So he's quality in that sense, but he just it's like watching a baby walk for the first time, kind of stumbling over, and he trips over the ball, and they call it spider in training. I can see why, because there's just legs everywhere whenever he runs. But you're right. So either Sancho's going to have to teach him how to kind of attack, or we'll have to put him on the left-hand side just to give, if Sancho joins, that is, give him a bit of a helping hand. But yeah, one new fullback is needed. I think there's talk of Alex Telles coming in left back. United need a left back. Can't really stick with Luke Shaw. He's so injury prone, and he's kind of here and there every now and then. So, but Wan-Bissaka just needs to improve on going forwards and look. I don't care. To be fair, I don't care how comfortable he looks going forward. If he can play the right passes and get the right crossing and stuff, instead of just getting to the byline and whacking it and hoping. So someone's got to kind of teach him how to do that side of things. The concerning thing for me is he used to be a winger. So what were Palace teaching him when he used to be a winger? What were they teaching him? How can you be a winger when you can't cross? How can you be a winger when you can't play a 5-yard pass? So he's got promise, but if I were Palace, I'd maybe consider sacking the coach who was teaching him how to be a winger.
Well, this will have been the same coach that taught Wilfried Zaha how to be a winger. How has it gone that desperately wrong from one extreme to another? I've got no idea. But I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, football Twitter is pretty much Arsenal versus United at the minute. Well, it always has been. I think Chelsea and Liverpool fans like to think they're involved, but they're just not. I think it'll be really interesting to see the comparisons between Sancho's first season and Pepe's first season, because as much stick as he gets, I think you can't deny for his first season in English football, Pepe's had a good season, at least, if not a very good season. Just purely out of interest, how would you rate his first season, Joe?
Yeah, I think considering the season as a whole, he's been pretty good. It was a very slow start under Emery. Then Lundberg, he's there like 3 games, but didn't really do much. He just kept the same style of football as Emery did. Then under Arteta, he's got to that level that we expect him from his first season, not like his prime, if you want to call it that. From like January onwards, he hit the levels that we're supposed to be expecting. He's finished like 18 goals and assists, I think. So I think I'm happy with that for his first season. Like, I don't rate the French league at all, so I wasn't expecting too much from him. It's the Farmers League against Farmers defenders, so any winger can really do well in that. And Javinho proved that, to be honest. So I'm happy with how he's done, and he's doing well. He's linking up with the Bamang now. He somehow loves that back post cross. But yeah, I'm excited for next season.
Well, that's you got anything you want to say, Emery?
I was just going to say there's loads of comparisons between Pepe and Greenwood, which is interesting to me. What's Pepe, 22, 23?
22, I think. Maybe 24, but somewhere around there, yeah.
Around the kind of early 20s.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of comparisons in that sense. I want to hear it from an Arsenal fan as to what you make of that. I know Greenwood's been on fire this season as well, but what do you make of the comparisons? And if you had to pick one player to be in your team at the moment, who would it be?
It's a bit of a weird comparison, really, because Greenwood out there is more of a striker than a winger. He's a much better finisher than
On the
Pepe
right,
is.
he's been playing on the right this season.
Yeah.
What would you?
On the right, I'll pick Pepe on the right because getting past people, dribbling past people, and then his crossing as well is pretty good. Like, he's got much better Pepe. I'll pick Pepe, but if you pick a striker and it's Greenwood all day long, like, I don't know who's comparing Greenwood and Pepe, to be honest, because I would say the two different players.
I saw a couple on Twitter from Arsenal fans comparing their first season stats and saying who they'd rather have as a right kind of attacking midfielder. I guess you could call them that in the formation.
Yeah, I would say, like, I would never play Greenwood on the right, if I'm being honest. I would always play in front because his finishing ability is unbelievable, especially for his age, and he's so two-footed. Like, obviously Lewandowski, Messi, these guys, Ronaldo, are all two-footed, but when you watch them and you watch Greenwood's so much more comfortable on either foot than they are. Like, I'm not saying, oh, he's better than Ronaldo and Messi, but you can see he has that quality. So I wouldn't really compare them, but if I have to choose one on the right, I would choose Pepe. If I'm choosing the better player from this season as a whole, I'm choosing Greenwood. Because from the start, from Europa League, he's building his way up. He's building, and the United team is not easy to get into. I know it's not the greatest time for you guys, but it's still not easy to go through that academy. I think he came through that PSG game last season. And it's just kept on building up more and more. So I think you have to give credit to him because Ole's not a good manager. So to be performing well under him, deserve even more credit. So yeah, Pepe on the right, but Greenwood has been the better player this season.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with you there, Joel, because I've not seen many comparisons, but I don't understand them. They're two completely different players. Like you said, Pepe's a creator. He's incredible at beating a man, creating a chance when he doesn't take too many touches in the box, obviously. We've seen that a lot this season. But yeah, Greenwood's build-up play was widely known that it needs improving if he's going to stay out on that wing. But in front of goal, there's not many better in the league, and he's only 18. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you there. But just because I've only just seen it on Twitter, I'd like to introduce a new segment into the podcast, which would be L of the Week. Just purely, we'll give it a run. But I think there's no better way to start this segment than with Spurs, because it's Don Fabrizio has reported recently that they've had a £15 million bid for Højbjerg from Southampton accepted, which in itself, I'd say, not bad. He's a good player. But he also reported in the very same tweet that they're looking to sell Ndombele to Inter Milan. So I think the most Jose Mourinho thing to ever happen would be to replace one of the hottest prospects in world football last season, as in, well, the season before the one just gone, with Højbjerg. I think that could be L of the transfer window already. What do you guys think about that?
Joel, go on.
I rate Højbjerg. I mean, I don't know about Spurs, but Southampton is good. And he shows quality because he came through like the Bayern team. But yeah, like you said, it is the most Mourinho thing I'll ever see, isn't it? And Ndombele, a hot prospect midfielder from Lyon, getting one season, just getting offered like that and not even given a chance really for a Southampton player. That'd be nasty. Southampton have been good since the restart, but let's be honest. I think if 90% of people chose between Højbjerg and Ndombele, they're choosing Ndombele purely because he's that flair player that every top six side needs in that midfield, just to get them up the field a bit more. And yeah, I mean, when you said the week, I thought we could talk about Brentford, but this is another big L, I think.
L of the week.
Others, yeah. But I got a Spurs fan as me, and he was happy to sign Højbjerg, which I found interesting. But I don't think he'll be happy that Ndombele is going to Inter Milan at all.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there. It's a very tight one between Brentford and Spurs. Obviously, I'd love to see Brentford in the Premier League. Fulham are just the ham sandwich of football clubs. No one wants to see them in the Premier League apart from Fulham fans. But you can't start a segment of L of the Week, like the very first, the initiation of it, without giving it to the banter club in England, surely. I just think they take the cake just purely by reputation. What do you think, Henry?
I'm closely behind. I mean, as far as kind of Exeter City based talk, it's not bad for Exeter if Watkins, well, he's obviously staying in the Championship, but it looks like he'll get sold to the Premier League for a large sum, and 20% of that goes to Exeter. So as far as W of the week, it could be for Exeter if you get, like £5 or £6 million from that kind of sale. That's huge for the club. But yeah, you're right. In terms of Spurs, if you want to cement your place as a banter club in the current kind of Premier League era, then I think that's the right way to do it. Sell one of your hottest prospects, although Mourinho has been the kind of very Mourinho about it, about how he's been critical of Ndombele the whole season. So the L could be that and their new Amazon series being released. A season of pretty much failure, really. So yeah, I think you're right on that one.
Well, I think that's about it then. We'll end it for this week's episode. Getting to about an hour. So Joel, once again, thanks for coming on and giving us your insight towards Arsenal. And from me and Henry, it's goodbye, and we'll see you next week.